So, hello, everyone. We're a team with the WPI Green Team presenting our project called From Cafeteria to Compost, Sustainable Food Waste Management at WPI. I'm Gabe Espinosa, a mechanical engineering major in the class of 2024.
I'm Jackson Nguyen. I'm a biochemistry major, class of 2026.
Abigail Holmes. I'm a junior biomedical engineering major, class of 2024.
I'm Hildy McCorkle. I'm a sophomore environmental engineering major, class 2025.
So the WPI Green Team is WPI's big sustainable organization on campus that's student-led. And our goals are to promote sustainable living and better environment at WPI and the greater Worcester community through our values for sustainability, action, and justice. This project is a part of the specific waste management subcommittee, which is working under Green Team. In this presentation, we'll go over our problem, then the mission, our plan, and then our next steps moving forward for food waste management at a university scale.
First, the problem is that WPI generates a lot of food waste. So millions of tons of food waste are wasted on college campuses each year, and all these food waste ultimately ends up in landfill. This is not only a waste of money and resources, but it also contributes to greenhouse gas emissions that worsen climate change.
Climate change is one of, if not the most dire problems currently facing really all humans, all mankind on Earth. And food waste generates methane, which is a greenhouse gas that's actually 28 times more potent than carbon dioxide. So you'll hear a lot about different kinds of carbon capture and methods to reduce carbon dioxide and less about food waste. Whereas at the end of the day, methane is actually more potent and more harmful to the environment. So the more food waste that is produced, the more methane that enters the atmosphere. And this is extremely problematic for climate change, as methane is a sort of protective measure, and it kind of absorbs a lot of energy from the sun, therefore retaining heat and increasing worldwide global temperatures.
Climate change has many effects on the planet. According to NOAA, the global temperatures have increased 1.1 Celsius from 1901 to 2020. And then there's many effects on all over the world, including shrinking polar ice caps, which leads to rising sea levels, changes in weather patterns, which includes more droughts, more flooding, and less snow and precipitation in the winter months and drought in the summer months, which can affect the food supply. And oceans become more acidic, which can lead to coral bleaching, biodiversity decline, and there's an overall increase in natural disasters. Therefore, it's vital we take action before it's too late.
So next, we'll talk about our mission. The primary goals of this project on the university spectrum, at least, are to minimize the food waste produced at dining halls and generally raising awareness for more sustainable eating practices. To better encourage composting within the university dining halls, and as well as Greek life organizations around campus to better promote these environmentally friendly habits. On a global spectrum, the goals of this project are to, of course, reduce the greenhouse gas emissions that can contribute to climate change, as well as conserving resources like energy, water, land, and the food that all produces, as well as preserving biodiversity in the producing the food and keeping it out of landfills.
Next, we're going to talk about our three main projects that we're working on to address the problem. So it's Project Zero Waste, University Composting, and Greek Life Composting. So the objective of Project Zero Waste is to reduce food waste at Morgan Dining Hall by 5% each semester. And how we do this is that every Wednesday, we measure the amount of food waste at Morgan Dining Hall, between lunch hours, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. And we collect the food waste in a large container and weigh them using a scale. And then green to-go boxes are tallied per hour and they're removed from the count.
So this graph here shows some of our initial data from the fall semester of 2022, both A and B term, of food waste collected per pound and then per student that entered and ate at the dining hall during the 3-hour time period we're there on Wednesdays during lunch each term. So this graph can show that it's the amount of food waste generated per student is relatively sporadic, and there's not necessarily a consistent trend we can see over time. There's a 40% overall decrease from the highest high to the lowest low of food waste generated per student in the dining hall, although the reason for this decrease is not entirely conclusive. Neither is there a trend we can base any sort of conclusions off of. This is also likely due to the fact that at dining halls, some days maybe the food isn't the best quality, so that could encourage people to waste more than they would on other days. Also, some days people are just having a bad day, they're maybe not able to finish their food as well as they could have the day before. So there's many factors that all contribute into the amount of food waste that the average student is going to be generating. And Project Zero Waste aims to help raise awareness for that and make it so people are a little more conscious about the food waste they're generating. In A and B term, this was the start of this new program with a new freshman class entering. So we're hoping that by C and D term, we can see more of a decrease over time since people are now more used to the program. So the significance of Project Zero Waste is, like I said, that students will be made more aware of the food waste that is being generated on campus and the impacts that has on the environment and the campus community as a whole, as well as our 5% reduction goal we think can significantly reduce methane emissions as well as CO2 emissions that are involved in the frequent transport required to dispose of the food waste.
Another one of our projects is composting on campus. So our objective is to propose an initiative for composting at the South Village Campus Center, which was opened in the last year. And our proposal is projected for the 2023 to 2024 academic year. So the plan would include setting up waste receptacles and switching to compostable materials and getting new signage to properly introduce the program to students. The compost collection would occur twice a week on the loading dock, and requirements would include no plastic contaminants or chemicals. The company that we work with is called Black Earth Compost, and it's out of Grafton, Massachusetts. And they collect food scraps for universities all in one program and minimize extra work for the WPI's custodial and facilities staff. The process includes once a week, 2 containers picked up, and then the cost would include a $50 one-time fee and $50 per pickup, which would be $50 a week and $1,600 an academic year. The benefits to the university would be composted that would go towards the WPI community garden.
And it's important to note as well that this price associated with Black Earth Compost is specifically for a pilot program that would take place at the South Village Campus Center. Some of the alternatives that we considered for university scale composting were 2 other companies, one called Feedback Earth and one called Green Mountain Technologies, which would basically build an on-campus vessel, which is basically a reused shipping container that is turned into a big composting machine. The problem with this specific approach is that it would require staffing on campus. It would require long-term maintenance costs in running the machine, as well as buying a carbon feed source for the composting. And it would be about $300,000 of initial cost, not including obviously the cost of staffing this and buying the carbon feed regularly. Feedback Earth was another good option in comparison to Black Earth Compost. They were slightly more expensive, although not too much to be uncompetitive. Although our primary issue with them is their scalability and reliability. As a startup company that primarily works in generating animal feed from human food waste, they weren't necessarily equipped to handle such a diverse feedstock that would come from university scale composting, since they're primarily used to getting their feedstocks from places like grocery stores or food manufacturing facilities, which have very consistent outputs that are already organized and sort of separated. University compost would be much more messy and variable, so it wouldn't necessarily be something that can count on being able to process properly. And looking at some of these initial numbers, these are all from C term in 2019 from a waste audit that was conducted by the Green Team. This shows some of the food waste that was being generated at various dining halls on campus it's important to note the difference between pre and post-consumer waste. Pre-consumer waste is all the food that is generated in the kitchen, meaning like potato peels or any clippings from different fruits and veggies in the preparation process. And post-consumer waste is all the food that is basically left over on your plate at the end of the day, all the food that's already been prepared and that has to then be thrown away. So Campus Center and the Goat's Head both technically collect food waste, although their food waste receptacles are basically unseen and underutilized by students, so they're almost negligible and essentially just collect their pre-consumer waste. Morgan Dining Hall, on the other hand, is really the only dining hall on campus that actually collects all of its post-consumer waste, which is why these numbers are so much higher for that particular location. And generally over the entire 32-week academic year, using these numbers, a conservative estimate would be that we would generate around 172,000 pounds of food waste per year, which is quite absurd and much more than many other universities of a similar scale to ours.
One way that we're looking to help to mitigate this big problem is through involving Greek life organizations and Compost. So Greek life organization, or 30% of WPI students, over 30% are involved in Greek life organizations. So that's actually a higher percentage than any other student organization cumulatively. So we're hoping to partner with different Greek life houses, which there are 16 Greek life houses on WPI's campus housing over 200 people, to implement vermicomposting to try and ameliorate our food waste problem. And the goal is that through starting with Greek life students who are really leaders on campus and in a lot of other organizations can continue this kind of domino effect of first a large scale composting system at the Greek life houses, which will be further applied to Greek life members, and then that this could be expanded to inspire other organizations and other students to join composting in their homes. So Greek life composting, we're trying to work with vermicomposting, and vermicomposting is a process of decomposing organic material using worms. The reason why we're looking at vermicomposting is because it's faster and more efficient than traditional composting, and it also involves minimal space. So we have a plan which will be in further detailed, but it's more less space that would take up than traditional composting and less effort, which are both important, especially when we're looking at a student population, to ensure that any kind of composting that we're using is efficient, it's safe, it's fast, and it's something that people will actually be able to do.
Next, I'll provide some background on worms. So like in terms of feeding the worms, like stuff to feed them include like coffee grounds, food scraps, napkins, shredded paper, tea bags, etc. And to not feed them include like dairy, milk, cheese, excessive citrus, like outer layers of onions and bread. And like these worms could be by like a worm farm. And an example would be like Uncle Jim's worm farm, which is like they sell like roughly 1,000 adult red worms is roughly $55 for like roughly a pound. And then these worms are roughly like 1 to 3 inches in length, and 1,000 count of red composting worms can create between like 8 to 16 ounces of compost per day. And these composts would would be done in like containers. And like an example would be like this 25-gallon box from Lowe's, which is roughly $27. And depending on the size of the Greek house, each chapter we need to like buy X number of boxes, because like we calculate to be like 5 people would like require like roughly this box to like for composting. And like the recommendation is to like start with 2 boxes and like increase if needed, and start with roughly like a half pound of worms to be safe, because like worms usually don't like the new environment, and you want to start like low and then increase. And then the estimated cost, like the cost, as I said, is dependent on the size of the house, but like assuming you start with 2 boxes, which is $54, and then 1,000 worms, which is like $55, so like roughly $109. And then like I know it's like buying the box, and worms is like a one-time investment.
And then our next steps with the ongoing programs we have. Moving forward, we need to find funding for the university composting, working with Black Earth Compost along with dining services, and present ideas to different Greek life organizations to initiate Greek life composting in this D term and next year, and continue Project Zero Waste to keep track of food waste on campus and raise awareness for the amount of food waste we create.
And these are our references for this presentation. And thank you all for listening. We appreciate the time, and we hope to continue to have a big impact on WPI's food waste management processes.